What's up guys, Chris with Drift HQ.
And Cricket with Drift HQ, and we're here to show you how to turn a regular F80 into a full-blown drift car. First thing you want to do when doing anything with your F80 is upgrade your crank hub to a pinned crank hub. You have to drill and tap and put bolts in it, but it really helps. And if you look back on our previous videos, we actually had someone do it for us on this exact car.
All right, so we're gonna start with the rear of the car. This car, fortunately, we already did BC coilovers and all the SPL adjustable arms on, but we have not addressed all of the bushings in here. So these subframes are hard mounted to the chassis, so there's no subframe bushings, but that does mean that the differential bushings are very sloppy. And it also means that there is only one carrier bushing on the back of this, which we'll show you once we get the subframe out the car, because it actually has a spot right here for a secondary bushing, just to prevent all the deflection in your drive line, because that's what ends up eating up your axles, ruining your drive shaft, and giving you wheel hop, stuff you don't want to deal with on this car, because things are expensive when you break them. So don't break them. All right, so now we got the subframe down, and you can see where a few of our bushings are. Here, this one that is missing, and now they come with a new bracket for the rear of the diff that's gonna allow us to have 2 carrier bushings, as well as upgrade from this stupid liquid filled. You're gonna see once we start knocking this thing out, all the juice that comes out of it. So we already have our beautiful SPL arms. It's probably the best option for the F80s. They have the most adjustment, and plus they use the big FK Heims on them. So we put these things through the paces, like really beat on them, and not really had any issues with them. So that's all you can really expect. Not break when you hit
yeah, we're used to breaking a lot of stuff. And the adjustment is very easy. It's got these little locking collars on there. You just need an Allen, M5 Allen, and you can just slide that off and then adjust it by hand. You don't even need a wrench, even though it has a spot for it. 3/16, excuse me, SAE. Say? You don't say that. So yeah, we're gonna get started on this, taking it all apart, at least all the stuff in these bushings. We're gonna drop this diff, cut out all the old ones, put in the new ones, which they're over here somewhere. So we have the PowerFlex bushings, and we also got the PowerFlex brace, which replaces the factory one, and that gives you that second option for your bushing.
Now, it is really nice with that front nose brace too, because you can actually remove that whole brace from the diff, then take it over the press, knock out your bushings. We've gotten really good at it now. Then just push your new bushings in, then bolt it back up to the diff, as opposed to trying to like wheel your diff around and move it and trying to get it out of the way. So that helps a lot. All right, so I unbolted the 2 upper control arms because these are the easiest ones for us to get to where we're at. Unbolting these 3 here allows you to swing the knuckle far enough out of the way to get the diff, or the axle, out of the differential. So it gets a little bit tight in there because these don't actually have a bolt-on flange, they just slip into the differential. Not fun when you change them at the track. So these don't have output cups. These are just full-blown axle. Full-blownsies. Which is why you have to send your cores to DSS if you want axles built, because they use all the existing parts and pockets and whatnot. Make us a little bit more swing room. We're going to take that one off as well. Although it kind of looks like our sway bar end link is binding up, yeah. You just stay right there.
Torx and regular hex. Weird. BMW because BMW.
Could have just used regular hex or all 4 Torx.
They want you to change your tips on your wrench or your socket, you know, just because they want to make things difficult. Like, yeah, just make it all E-Torx. I don't mind them as long as you have them, but when you need them and you don't have them, it really sucks. So 12-point work as well. In case you don't have an E-Torx, the 12-point bits also work as an E-Torx.
It gets really sketchy though.
Yeah, because it doesn't bite onto the whole E-Torx as it should. Squeaky.
Again, all much easier when you have the subframe out of the car, because getting to that nut while this is all in the car,
not happening.
Not a good time. So as Donnie showed us, you can take a drill bit
big enough to take out both sides of this, but not touch that. So it's going to be a big job.
It's going to make it juicy. As we covered in a previous video, we are now going to stage 3, where we're at. Stage 1 is hitting stuff with a hammer, or no, stage 1 is just trying to push it out. Stage 2 is knocking out with a hammer. Stage 3 is the ball joint press. Stage 4 now, the real press, the big girl. not so big. We've literally bowed this thing out just from using it way past where it's supposed to be.
Stage 4 is so much easier than all the other stages. So we always like to show the other ways to do it, even though they don't always work, because sometimes you don't have the option of having one of these.
Yeah, you can always rent the ball joint press from a local parts store, but you don't always get an actual like hydraulic press to do things. Boom. Boom.
Yeah, boom. That was a little too easy.
We had the rev shifts in stock and we did not have the power flexes, and since we're kind of running a tight timeline on this, we went with these. Same thing, they have a poly outer sleeve with a nice metal insert. And you'll see that one of these bushings always has a little notch taken out of the side. Just orient that towards where obviously your lip's not going to work. I think stage 1 is just pushing it in by hand.
So that's stage 1. There it is. There's your stage 1. Hey!
You got your stage 1 right here.
So we are heating up these bolts if you can, and you have something that's a little corroded like we have been dealing with these bolts. Heat them up first.
And they also come with a ridiculous amount of thread locker from the factory, so that just prevents things from snapping off in a perfect world.
How fast that came out. That's beautiful.
You can see all the residual thread locker that was in those bolts there. So that gets replaced with,
Right here.
yeah, our sweet little billet boy. I'm gonna throw a little thread locker on them Johnny as well.
Yep. Loctite your new ones.
Hey, look who's back.
Tommy's back in town. Merry Christmas, buddy.
Yeah, you too.
So Chris is heating up the axle because we actually have to remove that and remove the bolts on the backside of the hub because it bolts onto it here from SLG. Pretty sweet little dual caliper brackets. So you got to actually remove everything to bolt this up because in order to get to the bolts that this bolts up to, you have to remove that.
Yeah.
So he's having fun heating it up, doing the same thing that we did to the other.
PB blaster, some heat, you know.
And now we're gonna beat the hell out of it. Come on, baby. Don't be so mean.
Went from option 1 to option 5 real quick.
Obviously, ideally, remove the least amount of things as possible. So we soak these wheel bearings in PB blaster because they are very tight. I got a back cramp earlier. Pulling this one out. So
Can't confirm.
bolt-on wheel bearings, bittersweet. I mean, still rather do this than have to press any bearing. But, you know. Yep. This is nature's Loctite. This is that like cone I'm talking about. Very gently. Knock out your rusty hub. These are the ones you're going to want to torch. We PB blasted them before we went to lunch. Now we are going to very carefully heat these and remove them without breaking them, because these little M6ers that hold all the moisture, dust, and everything else from your shield. We're batting 1,000 today, boys. Tell you what.
Except for that one in the top corner over
That
there.
one guy? Don't worry about that little guy.
Oh, good enough for me. You're my guy.
All right. And that guy. There's one more bolt that goes in from the back side of the bearing, by the way.
Always use red Loctite. Don't use the blue stuff. We like the red stuff. Smells good too.
Smells great.
The bearing straights.
Bearing below. Yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at right now with the rear end, because we are still waiting on our secondary bushing for the rear. We used it for the F30 when we were doing the assembly on that one, and just didn't realize we were going to be doing more F80 stuff so soon. So we're waiting on that to come in, so in the meantime we're going to do the wise fab in the front. We already have our BCs installed, so we're going to fit up the lower control arms, the tie rod sleeves, and all that good stuff. We can take this guy off of here.
Oh God, Cricket, I knew you were gonna do that. I saw that coming a mile away. Don't touch that against that.
Yeah, there's two more underneath here. We take those out, we can just take that whole aluminum bar out of our way for now.
Okay.
Cool.
We're at the front of the car, so we are removing the top hats from the coilovers because the WiseFab has specific top hats that offset the pickup point to the shock a little further forward for more caster adjustment. These ones are actually the new version of the WiseFab front kit for this, the ones we installed in the F80. It just had a fixed mounting point on the top and all the adjustments done through the lower control arm. So now we are learning as we go. We're gonna learn with you. So we're going through this a little too fast for you guys. We actually did the entire coverage of how we built the F80 for Drift Week on Duarte's car. That's a little bit more in depth, gives you a little bit more information on it. that another big boy? Oh, that is another big boy.
Big boy. That's that 9/16 12 point, right?
Yeah, looks like it.
You mean an E-Torx? A big E-Torx?
Yeah, I don't have a U-Torx that big.
Oh.
So 9/16 12 point works perfectly.
So the problem with doing it with this is it only grabs the outside of it and doesn't sit all the way around it. But yeah, so just be gentle with it. It folds when you do that. It's
not super rigid. I mean, it has a whole lot of mounting points, but either way, I'm not a big fan of it. In awesome BMW fashion, they made a weak point. Instead of fixing it, they just give you this metal plate that bolts on there and it reinforces where the top hat mounts. But in wise fab fashion, I'm not sure with these top hats, but with the other ones, we did have to notch this, which means I had to notch that before I bolted it back up. But I'm going to do the old test fitting and see if it's actually going to stay within the range that we are looking for. Yeah, I don't think we're actually going to have to notch this one. All right, now we don't have much spring preload on these things, so we're going to take these off and pop them into there using these same insulator buoys. So get an adjustable, we can knock that loose, and then I believe that's a 19 or 17. Just take that top hat off. Free up just like that. Now we're going to remove you and you. And then that little guy's going to center in there, and this little guy's going to center in the back.
tray off. And that's the bolt I lost I was holding on the rim for.
As with any car that goes high mile per hour from the factory, it is just riddled with under trays and underbody guards and all kinds of crazy stuff. We already did the oil cooler in this thing, which is great, so we don't have to deal with all that. Like all of this plastic stuff that literally encases both sides of the lower control arm, and all that is just not going to be working for us with the WiseFab. I believe we can still keep this in place. Fender liners and stuff you have to remove anyways because the tire is going to hit the back of the fender liner. We trimmed them out in the last car, but there wasn't much of them left, so might as well just remove them. We are going to end up changing the brake hoses on this thing because it is definitely recommended you run longer brake hoses when you put the angle kit on. More fender liner screws. F80s on both sides. I believe this side is an auxiliary cooler that helps cool the radiator, and then on the other side is an auxiliary cooler that helps to cool the heat transfer for the water to air intercooler in the top, because there's a big heat transfer in front of the radiator and the condenser. Either way, they're on both sides. And you have to kind of scoot it out of the way a little bit, at least get that hose rotated to be able to get that bolt out. It's not a good time. You gotta be real careful because it's all plastic and it gets a little brittle. So while we're pulling everything apart, we are going to remove this entire assembly as one. So the control arms, the knuckle, the inner and outer tie rod, and this other lower control arm. We'll just pull that all out in one swing because we do have to remove the wheel bearing to install it into the WiseFab upright.
He scared me when he said, watch out, it'll probably just drop out.
So now we get a whole lot of nothing in our wheel well. So now we could put our WiseFab knuckle on, which is how I did it before, but we'll probably put the lower control arm first, because that's going to be easier that way. Is that your spit?
No, it's water from the car. Mm-hmm. This is the one that I was wiping the car down with.
Mm-hmm. Quick tip. Whenever you're installing stuff like this, or any control arm for that matter, it's better to make it with your bolts facing downward and then the nuts facing from the top, because if you ever lose a nut, you'd rather have the bolt still in there and just have to find a nut than lose your entire bolt. So for F30 stuff, the heims that come pre-installed, the spacers for the heims come pre-installed are just the slightest little bit wider. So you put the smaller ones in for the F30. These are not fun to get out because WiseFab does make them really tight.
No, you do the smaller ones for the F80. You said the smaller ones for the F30. We're taking out the big ones for...
Whatever, you know what I mean.
He's tired.
Tired of your shit. Yep. And if you see, we loosened these two bolts down here. That allows you to kind of move this a little bit freer. Two bolts that hold it up into the subframe there. So that way you can put that back up, because these are not a good time to get out. And if you take this out, you start draining a bunch of coolant, and we don't want to do that either. I prefer to break them loose by hand, especially with these Torx, because if they strip out, you're gonna have a really bad day. So Normally we'll break them loose first, and then once they're loose, we can hit them with the impact. We also soaked them in PB Blaster. So the last fab knuckle does come with new bolts for this, so we're not too worried about it. There we go. They're just gonna fall out, and you don't really want to hit the crown of it either with the hammer, because that's kind of the contact point for your bearing rides. And also right next to that is where your ABS wheel speed sensor picks up. So if you end up bowing any of this out, not gonna work out well. These bolts, we don't need any. Right there. Yeah, give you all your different Acumen settings for the different types of available washers. This one comes with the kit, so one with the 2 tabs on the top is 3mm. You can run positive or negative, obviously. Everybody wants to run. The way we run it normally is 0. So we are gonna set it to the 0 setting, and then we'll keep those on hand in case somebody's driving style prefers something different.
Throw them in the glove box for them.
This is the one that goes down to your ball joint, which is on our lower control arm. So first what we're gonna do is put this sleeve onto our coilover. So this is going to be our passenger side. I'm sorry, our driver's side. Now the knuckle thing we're gonna have to figure out. We might just run it with the coilover pretty much where it's resting, where the sway bar mount is on there, just so that it doesn't have any room for that to slip downward. Then it can't go nowhere. Any higher than that, it can still slip through. So if you guys followed the last F80 build, we had a bunch of issues with the original version of the WiseFab with rotor sizing. So we ended up going with a bunch of different ones from the different models of F30 to try and get it all to go together. Well, this one comes with this nice adapter bracket here, and this adapter bracket actually allows us to use our stock F80 rotor, which saves us a lot of headache and sizing and ordering stuff and trying to see if it's going to work or not. So that's nice. We go this way. My rod, my end. All right, so you have on this a little different than on the E36 and E46. It still has the shifter linkage and still has this bracket mounted to the top. But this little guy here, you can actually sneak out of here. Not in the easiest way, but you can actually get this thing to pop out of the chassis.
Oh wow.
Even though it looks like it's welded.
It does come out.
It does come out, which if you've ever tried to remove one of these shifters without undoing this, it's a real pain in the ass. So now,
So this is all to install a chassis mount shifter?
yeah, or even just to pull your trans, it's way easier to do that than try and get these links off the top right here, because then all of this can drop down with the shifter. And since I got to pull the trans anyway, since we're gonna pop a clutch in this thing.
Ooh, clutch upgrade too?
Yeah.
Wait, don't they come stock with like some sort of twin disc thing?
Yeah, but not so great for drifting. Single or a dual mass flywheel.
Alright, so we're in the interior of the car.
Oh look, that's how you pop fuses right there.
Is there a penny in there?
Yeah, that's classic.
Yeah, why does the penny fit so perfect?
Boy, if I had $1 for every time that I couldn't figure out why my fuse kept blowing, to find out that there's a penny or a dime or something conductive in there. It takes a gum wrapper, that's all it takes.
There's more than one penny, bro. There's 2.
They thought it was a coin holder. Yeah, it's a coin holder, right?
Don't record this, I'm not breaking. She's a big bitch. Hey BMW, stop doing that. Like this? Stop doing it. We don't love to see it.
This is for your drop-in Drift HQ hydro mount that bolts right to the factory place, and then you're gonna bolt your hydro here, and it comes up through the factory hole, so you retain all your factory plastics that's visible. However, you're gonna need to cut this section out for your reservoir, but it's covered when you close it. You don't see it, and then you have this sweet IRP pull-up number 1. So it actually can go pull up or pull back. You can take and flip this around, and this will come up to here instead of being down here. But with this will fit right into place. It'll go through there. It'll be nice and clean. It'll still look like a normal street car. However, it will have WiseFab and dual caliper kit on it. So these are available at drifthq.com.
Made by Cricket.
Made by me. So we got NP parts and engineering shifter, excuse me, for the F80. There was a little clearance because this is a little gummed up, so Chris did a little drill through it, just barely enough, just to shave a little bit, so it actually slides.
Nice and tight.
Nice and tight into there. So now we're gonna have to figure out where the self center is, and then go from there. Like clockwork. First, second, third, fourth, and then push the button, reverse. Pow! MP parts!
Alright, so to plumb everything into this car for our hydro that Cricket's working on the mount for, I'm going to use the Drift HQ line kit. This one, there's not one specific for a F chassis right now, but the Corvette one seemed like the best bet. It has the 90-degree 1/8 NPT because all of the Willwood calipers for the most part are 1/8 NPT. So let's run the lines and kind of tuck them up to the control arms. So if you ever have a tire like cored out on you, you don't have to worry about it catching the line and like ruining your caliper or the threads. So long one goes from the master cylinder, and I am actually going to pop it through where the factory e-brake cables pass through the center console, because it already has a nice rubber grommet and it's all nice and tucked underneath the carpet. Plus there's 2 retainers underneath the trans tunnel and one on the gas tank that already has like a little clip loop. That way I can just clip it right into that and I don't have to worry about mounting anything into the underbody or drilling any holes in it and messing up the carpet. It's gonna go right up there. Alright, so we are going to start pulling the transmission out. Cricket got the hydro mounted up inside the car. We just want to get all the lines and everything ran and bleed the hydro before we fully install the center console, just in case there is any leaks. That way we don't have to take everything back apart. So right now we have the parts for this. We are still waiting on our bushing for the subframe. So I am going to start getting all of these annoying bolts out first, the top ones. Now the top ones are a little easier to get to if you put a center post on the front of your engine and give it a little bit of tilt back, just gives you a little bit more clearance to the trans tunnel. It's also easier if you have an incredibly long extension, which I happen to have. It's the holy grail of BMW transmission removal right here. So you can get from back here, and you get all the way up to there. And you can still get some leverage on it and give her the old, without losing a bunch of torque. When you put a bunch of extensions together, they start to flex and do weird stuff. This is a good one. And it's 1/2 inch, or 3/8 on this side and 1/2 inch on that side. Dual mass. Garbage. Alright, so we have the nice Clutch Masters twin disc. Comes with a new single mass flywheel and everything. I could not find any information online regarding what the torque specs are supposed to be for these. So I contacted Clutch Masters directly, and they told me that it's 80 foot-pounds because the factory bolts are torque to yield. These are not, and I did not want to strip out this crankshaft, just taking a guess at it. So now we have answers. Love answers. Oh, yeah, the SS series. Yeah, it comes with alignment tool, pressure plate, bolts, new throw-out bearing, pilot bearing already installed in the flywheel. It really comes with all the goods. And this actually has a metal face, whereas most of the S55 stuff actually has a plastic face bearing. You'll see the one we take out of there is a little crusty, but this is nice. It's got a little taper to it. No, Omar.
Hi. Hey guys.
Come on, sweetheart. You know you want it.
So we got the other bushing.
That we do.
Cool.
We're gonna bush it to the limit.
Right down below the knuckle.
Dashboard?
Yep.
Rear end is completely assembled now. We have the dual caliper setup all bolted up and the lines ran. So now Cricket's adding fluid so we can bleed out the hydro, check for any leaks, and if everything's good, then we can reassemble our whole center console.
If you got a steady pour, it's not hard at all. I haven't spilled a drop yet, knock on wood. There's no wood in here, so I'm definitely gonna spill some. Right? Not bad. All right, now I got movement, buddy. We're getting somewhere now.
After you finish bleeding, just obviously check for leaks, make sure everything is good and tight. Make sure that your hydro still has pressure after you bled it. You know, if it sits for 5 minutes and it doesn't have pressure again, odds are it still has some air in it. But the Wilwood is also important. That has 2 bleeders. One is on the inner of the caliper and one is on the outer of the caliper. So you always want to make sure you bleed the inner first, then the outer, then the inner again, then the outer, just because air will build up on both sides of the caliper. It'll make your handbrake a little bit spongy. So now that everything is good and we checked everything, we can reassemble the whole interior and all 1,000 screws that take to put that back together. So as if you add angle to any car pretty much, you are going to put a lot of strain on your brake hoses. These ones are actually pretty decently long because they have a center mounting point, but because you're increasing the travel of your front caliper, you're going to want a longer brake hose. So the extended brake lines, we got them available for Corvettes, for BMWs, for pretty much anything you can imagine. So we're going to take the old ones out. So the faster you can do this, the less brake fluid you're going to lose, and ideally your caliper is still going to be full of fluid unless you're putting new calipers on the car. So the faster you can do this, the better off you're going to be. You don't have to worry about doing too much bleeding of your brakes. Alright, so we've pretty much covered all the footwork now. We've done all the suspension, all the bushings, the angle kit, the brakes, you know, addressing all the stuff for our dual caliper mount, shifter, clutch, so everything like driveline, suspension is good. Now we're going over to the engine side of things. As with anything, when you're abusing your engine, it's going to create more heat, especially drifting where you're consistently sitting on Revlin or high RPMs, you know, loaded. It's not like a drag car where you just make one pass, shut the car off, and you're good. So we're going to start with our heat exchanger here for the twin turbo setup. This is a watered air cooler. So these ones are plastic, they're prone to cracking, and also they're not as efficient. So we have this beautiful Mishimoto, all aluminum, works with all your stock charge pipes, goes to the stock throttle body, even the stock quick connects on the end of it. So it's just a drop-in replacement. Swap your reservoir and all that stuff over. It has all the threaded holes for the brackets and grommets and whatnot. And we have a couple other things we're going to throw on there. We have our thermostat here for the engine, for the cooling system. That is an updated one. It is 100 degrees Celsius, which, I mean, the operating temperatures on these things because the direct injectors are a little bit higher. And we have that guy over there, which is actually a thermostat bypass for our oil cooler here. So this has a factory oil cooler, which we also upgraded with the Mishimoto. But this one only opens at a certain temperature. That one's gonna let it just open flow because colder oil temperatures equals colder everything else.
We're going out. So if you know anything about drift cars, there's one thing you have to do. You gotta make it look cool. So we're gonna throw a little bit of aero on here, some carbon fiber bits all the way around. Donnie's unpacking it all and I'm just checking on the fitment and it looks really good. And for once, we get them already pre-drilled, which is really sweet. Because then I don't have to drill it and get that carbon fiber dust all over me because it's ever so itchy and it doesn't come out. So they made it big enough for you to be able to fit a socket inside of here. So if you want to nut and bolt it with, you know, bolts, you can. And we are going to as long as we can reach it. And do some 100-mile-an-hour tape because you don't want it to go anywhere. But they also do these little recesses right here to go around your bolt holes, and then where your other aero, you know, rear diffuser goes, it's already pre-notched with this kit so it doesn't bump out. So it actually fits in there really nice. Alright, so you guys have now seen what you need to do to turn your F80 into an actual drift car. And we've tested plenty of these, so we know it's a tried and true formula. So, Chris, what do you think?
It's got all the same parts as the blue car, and the blue car works really good, so
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. I've never actually drifted the blue car. I'm scared to. It's expensive.
It is expensive, but you know.
It's less expensive now. F80 prices are on the decline.
Oh, yeah, get you an F80. They're a lot cheaper now. You can get a nice F80 for the price of a really nice E46 M3.
Yeah.
They're like 25 grand for an F80, 30 grand for an F80 right now. And then you got to tack on all the stuff that we did to make it into a drift car. But for that, you know, that's 550 wheel horsepower in a drift car that has AC seats.
Air conditioned seats, that's where I'm sold.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, comment. Yeah. Happy New Year
Joyous.
as well. It's almost New Year.
It is almost New
It's
Year's.
2025.
You get an end of the year recap
Is
this
it
year?
2024 right now? So it's 2020. I'm old.
It's 2024. Cricket turned 62 this year. It's crazy.